this is曾敏, a master's student from the Department of Architecture at National Cheng Kung University. Today, I'm going to give you an introduction to the course History of Architecture in Taiwan, explaining its background and what we will learn in this class. Before delving into the introduction of History of Architecture in Taiwan, I'd like to bring up something I find quite interesting. The Department of Architecture at NCKU was established in 1944, and now in 2024, it boasts an 80-year history. However, the course History of Architecture in Taiwan has only been around for over 30 years. Doesn't that make you curious about what was taught before it appeared? In fact, in the field of architectural history at NCKU, the required courses originally included only history of Chinese traditional architecture, history of Western architecture, and history of modern architecture. This means that Taiwanese architecture was then still considered a subsidiary of Chinese architecture. With the reform and opening up of Taiwan, as well as the promotion of democratization movements, Taiwan's politics gradually operated with Taiwan Island as the main focus. Historical perspectives also shifted gradually from the concept of Greater China to the Taiwan-centric historical perspective, which is proposed by Cao Yonghe in the 1990s. It significantly influenced the historical discourse. He argued that previous historical studies in Taiwan had focused too much on Han Chinese perspectives and political changes. Taiwan itself is an independent historical stage where the people, events, and phenomena on the island are all part of Taiwan's history. Various figures may come and go, but the stage of Taiwan remains, shaping a historical perspective centered around the geographical space of the island. This broadens the horizon by placing Taiwan within the context of world history, focusing on interactions between Taiwan and its surrounding regions, encompassing both local and international dimensions. Such a shift in historical perspective constitutes the background for the establishment of the course History of Architecture in Taiwan. This course focuses on the architectural cultures and transformations that have occurred on this island throughout different periods. It encompasses architecture from prehistoric times to the present day. Here, I will introduce the teaching framework currently adopted by NCKU, which classifies Taiwanese architecture into 5 subcategories by considering both styles and periods. The 5 subcategories are Austronesian architecture, Dutch and Qing dynasty trading period architecture, traditional Han Chinese architecture, Japanese colonial period architecture, and post-war modern architecture. I will now briefly introduce each of these 5 categories in order. According to archaeological research, human activity on the island of Taiwan dates back to around 20 to 30,000 years ago. For the prehistoric era, archaeological investigations typically uncover artifacts and traces of human habitation, but they do not provide a clear picture of the architectural culture of that time. However, from the cave remains of the Changbin culture, we can confirm the presence of rudimentary architectural concepts, such as shelter from the rain and sun. Taiwan's indigenous peoples all belong to the Austronesian language family. The ancient Austronesian language group is believed to have arrived in Taiwan from southern China approximately 6,000 years ago, with scholars generally agreeing that around 3,500 years ago they expanded southward from Taiwan, gradually spreading throughout the Pacific region and also extending westward to Madagascar. As a result, indigenous peoples in these areas share certain cultural similarities to some extent, with Taiwan's indigenous culture preserving more characteristics of the ancient Austronesian language group. Due to Taiwan's significant geographical variations with mountains separating regions and rivers complicating transportation across the plains, the island has developed a diverse indigenous culture. Even over a short distance, cultural differences have emerged due to these barriers. Taiwan's indigenous peoples can further be classified into Plains indigenous groups and the Highland indigenous groups. The Plains indigenous peoples refer to the Austronesian-speaking peoples inhabiting the plains in the western and northern regions of Taiwan, while the Highland indigenous peoples reside on both sides of the Central Mountain Range and the eastern coast. Plains indigenous peoples residing in the plains and having early contact with the Han Chinese. They have largely assimilated culturally and have very few remaining architectural structures. Their possible appearance can merely be inferred from historical documents and photographs. As for the Highland indigenous groups, they were influenced at a later time and to a lesser extent, resulting in the preservation of some traditional architecture. Due to differences in natural conditions, social systems, and other factors among the various tribes, there are significant differences in architectural forms and materials used. Additionally, even within the same tribe residing in different regions, there can be regional variations. For example, the entrances to houses of the Amis tribe in the south and north are located on different sides. Some tribes use slate to build houses, which is evidently different from the Amis. Furthermore, architectural forms vary depending on their functions, such as the youth center of the Yuma tribe. Next, we move on to the architecture of the Dutch and Spanish trading period, which focuses on the architecture of Taiwan after its integration into the global trade system. In 1624, with the establishment of a trading post by the Dutch in Dayuan, Taiwan officially entered the historical era. This marked the first rudimentary form of a modern state in Taiwan's history. Although the Dutch and Spanish political power in Taiwan were relatively short-lived, they had profound effects. For example, the town established by the Dutch East India Company in Dayuan was the first planned town in Taiwan. Like the settlements of the Han Chinese or indigenous peoples, it featured orderly grid-like streets. The architecture of the trading period refers to the urban development and architectural styles brought about by the flourishing trade in 19th century Taiwan. This includes the Five Canals Zone, located in what is now the central western area of Tainan, which served as commercial waterways during the Qing dynasty. Their street patterns can still be felt today. Senong Street, in particular, retains some of these features. The wooden doors on the second floors of the street houses were designed to transport goods to the ground floor. Also, the back doors of these houses were directly connected to the canals at that time, making it convenient for goods to be unloaded. During the trading period, there were also foreign trading firms, commonly known as hongs. After the signing of the Treaty of Tianjin, foreign merchants began establishing these firms, such as the former German firm Dongxing Hong, located in Anping, Tainan. Next, let's move on to the Chinese-style architecture. Before the Dutch established their trading posts, there were already many Han Chinese activities in Taiwan. The Dutch East India Company recruited Han Chinese to cultivate the land around Dayuan area due to labor demands, which can be seen as the earliest wave of immigration. Later, due to various reasons such as turmoil in coastal China, the influx of Han Chinese immigrants continued to increase, shaping the urban and rural landscape of Taiwan. Residential homes, temples, and settlements are the focal points of this category. The next phase is the architecture of the Japanese colonial period. After the Treaty of Shimonoseki in 1895, Taiwan came under the governance of the Japanese government, which introduced many modernization projects and concepts that profoundly influenced Taiwan. For instance, the urban improvement plan involved the creation of a modern grid road system in previously organically developed cities to facilitate vehicle traffic, introduce sunlight, and ensure ventilation, In terms of architectural style, the Japanese government adopted Western historical styles to symbolize national strength in many significant public buildings, aiming to develop Taiwan into a progressive colony. The final category is post-war modern architecture. After the end of World War II in 1945, Taiwan came under the control of the Republic of China government. The post-war era saw the influence of Greater China ideology, US aid, and the profound impact of modernism, which influenced the whole world. Different ideologies debate on what constitutes progress, innovation, or legitimacy. In 1971, the Republic of China withdrew from the United Nations, followed by the rise of the Taiwan localization movement in the 1980s and the lifting of martial law in 1987, leading to continued political changes. Coupled with the evolving global architectural trends, postmodernism and regionalism have had a more profound impact. In an environment with multiple ethnic groups and diverse identities, Taiwan's architecture has become increasingly diverse. It has become more difficult to simply describe the style of a period, as diversity and coexistence have become a new mainstream trend. Above is the introduction to the course on the history of Taiwanese architecture. Within this research framework, there are inevitably many aspects of Taiwanese architecture that haven't been mentioned. However, they all constitute a part of Taiwanese architecture and are worthy of exploration and understanding. It is hoped that this course on the history of Taiwanese architecture can help everyone gain a deeper understanding of Taiwan. Thank you.